Hello everyone and welcome back to some rugby discussion, and this week you cannot take the smile off my face. That's right, we had semi-final rugby last weekend and we are back to discuss the happenings of the last weekend of semi-final Super Rugby. Now, once again, this is an opinion piece we're making, so of course when we are done, let us know what you all think and don't take anything we say too seriously to the bank. Once again, I am joined by the Scottish Cannon. How are you going?
I'm not too happy for obvious reasons, but I'm sure we'll get into that a bit further on.
Yep, I had to drag you along by the scruff of the neck to get you to come on for this one.
Yeah, you did.
Semi-final rugby took place last weekend. The Hurricanes took on the Brumbies. The Waratahs up against the Highlanders. If you tuned in last week, we did a bit of a preview of the upcoming matches, and now we're here to review what we thought and just give a bit of our insight as to what happened in the weekend. So we'll kick things off with the Hurricanes, the Brumbies. It was number 1 on the ladder versus number 6, and really that game exploded into life. The Hurricanes, who just a week off, some may say, teams of the week off are rusty, and we did discuss this last week as well, but it started off an absolute flurry of chances for the Hurricanes. Did you feel a bit ominous when you watched that start about how things might continue for the Brumbies?
Yeah, it was just a precedent for the things to come, wasn't it? Making Melisqueta just making those breaks down on the white ring, and just getting through the gap, but just not holding the ball. I think did they bomb 3 or 4 chances in the first 20 minutes?
Yeah, they just butchered a whole pile of tries. It could have been 20-0 after just 10 minutes of the match. It took them over 20 minutes until Julian Savea, what's a word you could describe, just squashed Nick White. He absolutely mowed him up like a lawnmower out with the grass.
Thank God.
Not a fan of Nick White?
No, Nick White's, and I absolutely hate him.
Okay, well that settles that straight away. So you've been happy to see him get squashed. Did you feel that was the beginning of the end when Savea just demolished him like that?
Well, it was always going to be a non-starter. Julian Savea against the smallest bloke on the field. Oh, who's going to win? Yeah,
every time. After that, the game did settle down. That try, it settled the nerves, and after that, the Hurricanes, they took over the match. They really dominated the control of the ball. The Brumbies saw nothing, and what do you put that down to? Do you think the Brumbies were tired of travel, just a bad game, a bad day, or just the Hurricanes were just too good in the end?
Well, I'm just going to put out there, I only saw the first half because I was on the way to the Waratahs match, but from what I saw, it looked like they were fatigued. It didn't help with combinations as well. Was it Leila Fano who got injured right at the start of the game, in which completely put the combinations out of it? So, I think it was a mixture of everything. The rest of the Hurricanes, the travel from South Africa, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they didn't look like they're really going to get into that game at all. They just looked completely outclassed, and there's probably a number of reasons why that was. The standouts from the match, you have to credit Ardie Savea, was absolutely fantastic, as was Julian, the brother. The two of them were just dynamic throughout that match. You mentioned already Nehemiah Scudder. He was brilliant for that. Only he played first half as well, which is just mind-boggling what he can do as well. Ma'anonu's in the form of his life, but the thing I want to ask you is more directed towards the Australian side. Firstly, Ardie Savea versus Pocock. Ardie Savea dominated him throughout the match. Is that a bad sign for Australian rugby when he's kind of a talisman, isn't he, really, Pocock, for the Australian side?
Well, yes and no. I don't know where would you put Ardie Savea at 6, or would you put Richie McCaw at 6? I don't know. Where would you put him?
Ardie Savea's not even in the All Blacks squad.
Would you put him into the squad, is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, yeah, but where do you fit him in? He's not even in the All Blacks squad at all, because they've got...
Is he not?
No, they've got McCaw, they've got Todd, they've got Sam Cane, and then if you're going to put him at blindside, you've got Kaino, you got Messam still there, Kieran Reid is number 8. He's not even in the 41-player squad, but he dominated Pocock in the weekend.
Well, Pocock, obviously having 2 knee constructions in the last 3 years doesn't help, but I would think Cheika's moving more towards Hooper over Pocock at the moment.
But you have to say, Pocock has dominated every side he's come up against this season. He's scored like that rolling maul. Where was that rolling maul? They got completely blown off their game, the Brumbies. Pocock was a no-show. And that just... If I was an Australian fan, that would concern me quite a bit. And looking at the rest of that match for the Brumbies, no one was really specifically standout bad. But... I don't know, did you notice anyone who stood out from the Brumbies side of things from that match?
Well, no one in particular. They're all missing tackles.
Yeah, 35 missed tackles.
Yep, so they're all missing tackles. They're all just not getting on the front foot ball. I mean, I think they might have had a bit better game in regards to the way they played over the Waratahs, but both teams played awful from Australia.
Yeah, they were collectively all equally bad, but no one was a standout like the other number 10 that we'll get to later on. We'll just save that one. Speaking of number 10s and speaking of standout players, I thought Beauden Barrett was a bit average for the Hurricanes as well. It just doesn't bode well considering Sopoaga was a bit dodgy as well, but we'll cover him later on as well. But the Hurricanes were just too good in there. It was just complete domination. Two very defensive-heavy sides, that showed throughout the match, but the Canes attack, the Hurricanes, was just too good. Do you think the Brumbies really missed Henry Spate that much? And how, in my opinion, Taliuli, if that's how you pronounce his name, that's how I'm going with it anyway, was a bit of he was missing in action. Did you see that Spate was that big towards their attacking flair?
I didn't really pay attention to the wingers too much because the Brumbies didn't really get the ball to the wing too much, did they?
Didn't, no.
I think obviously Henry Spate's a Wallaby, so you're obviously going to be missing a Wallaby over a no-name. I don't even recognize that guy by who you're telling me either. So, obviously you're going to miss Henry Spate, but I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. I mean, he's not a 20-point margin difference, is he? No,
but he's a big player. He would get involved. I think that's what they missed. Someone, coming in and involving themselves when they didn't have the ball as well. And Tamani was getting a bit involved, but he just seemed like he was, the only one. They were just missing something extra. And maybe in hindsight, you could say that Spate could have been that difference for the Brumbies. But in the end, the difference was 20 points, like you said. I think last week you predicted the Canes by 10. Yeah, what do you think? Is that what you expected? Are you surprised by that at all?
Yeah, I thought the Brumbies would show up a little bit more. But obviously the attack from the Hurricanes is unmatched. Well, you might have a disagreement with the Highlanders, of course, but they just dominated. They deserve to win. Hurricanes played well all season, and I wish it was a bit closer, but you can always wish, but it might not always come true.
That's true. The only points they managed was penalties. They didn't get any tries either for the Brumbies. It was a bit of a whimper towards the end of their season, that one, which is disappointing from a team that I think most people predicted to go pretty well this year, but I guess semi-finals, you can't complain too much about that for the Brumbies. Their season's over, they're going home, and I guess some of them will be looking forward to a certain international season coming up as well. But the Hurricanes move on. They are hosting the grand final, which will be at Westpac Stadium this weekend coming up. Of course, we will be previewing that one as well, hopefully this week, all going well when the teams are announced, so stay tuned for that one coming in the next few days, hopefully as well. But semi-final number 2, this is a big one, for us at least. This was a massive game. It's one of the first games I've genuinely felt nervous about watching in quite some time. Normally, as you get older, you get a bit of the neutral kind of view on the games of rugby these days. But something about the Highlanders just got me that little feeling. You may have noticed it last week, that little feeling that they could have done something special. But there was a lot of big topics coming out of this match. We'll start off with one that you'll probably have a lot to say about as well. That would be the referee. That's what I'll say. Go for it. What do you think?
I think originally at the time when I was at the ground and making the decisions, every decision that I thought Joubert made was right. I think from what I thought at the time, in the moment. Most of his decisions were right. The first try to Buckman, he wasn't held in the tackle. He got out of it. He wasn't, he didn't have a hand on him on the ground. So he got right back up and, scored. And then the penalty try, which I'm sure we'll get into a bit more detail. Even though Potgieter was going for the ball, it's an arm to the head, and it prevented him from scoring a try. And unfortunately, the rule in rugby is if it's going to be a penalty try and by foul play, it's got to be a yellow card. And that's maybe where law interpretation needs to be looked at, because maybe it didn't have enough malice to. It definitely didn't have enough malice for a yellow card, but because the rule is it's an automatic yellow if it's a foul play towards a penalty try, I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
No, well, I wasn't aware of that rule, like you said, about if it's a penalty for that sort of professional foul malice thing like that, it's got to be a yellow card as well, which made perfect sense as to why he went with that. But yeah, it did feel a little bit too much, but just giving away a penalty probably would have felt like not enough. Whether it was intended or not, it's hard to say. I think Potgieter he's that kind of player, isn't he? He's an aggressive player, and he's gonna punish the ball handler, and that's just the way he plays. And I feel sometimes that can come off, and sometimes like that it could have been the demise or the assisted demise of the Waratahs. The ref as well, while we're on him, watching that game, there was a huge amount of offsides both ways in the end as well, and he was pretty influenced by the crowd as well. I have to say, he was, I don't want to say he was getting flustered by it, but he seemed to be persuaded a bit by the crowd things as well, although he did eventually stand tall a bit. But yeah, the penalty try, that could have been the end of that for the Waratahs.
Well, being in the crowd, I think it did have an effect. I mean, 32,000 fans, New South Wales fans, obviously going to get on your mind. I think the Gilbert only gave 2 or 3 penalties against the Waratahs in the first 50 minutes. So, it definitely did have an effect. The offside lines were at best a bit, a bit close, maybe line ball at times. And, I think it'd be a bit demoralizing for Gilbert, even though he's done World Cup finals and stuff, when 32,000 people are chanting, "Gilbert is a wanker." So, I mean, I think, I don't know how he would feel right now, but I think he's got his critics, #1 trend in Australia at that time. So, it's difficult being a referee.
But that's just a rugby crowd, though. You get that everywhere. Like,
no,
it's nothing new.
You do not get it in New South Wales at all. That's probably the first time I've actually been at a New South Wales match where the crowd's been so engaged in the match and so, so passionate.
Yeah, that's what I mean earlier when I said, that the match, I was genuinely nervous about the outcome. Like, I actually wanted the Highlanders to win. Normally I'd watch it and think, it'd be cool if the Highlanders win this game. But in the end, I'm not really too worried. But that match just had that connection, that seemingly like they were massive rivals when they're far from it. Just, and you probably felt that at the stadium as well with the crowd and that too, yeah?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was absolutely mental, and I was just deflated in the last 20 minutes. I almost accepted defeat after the yellow card, and I mean, we left with 5 minutes to go, 5 minutes left on the clock. We just gave up and just. I wanted to go before the traffic got, but obviously you might call me not passionate fan, but we went to the game. They gave it their best, the Waratahs, and maybe we should have stuck around for the last 5 minutes, but
would have seen that amazing try from Patrick Osborne.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just seen on replay. It wasn't too amazing. Just tip over and then. I mean, there's a few tries from kicks in that game. I don't know if you have a topic of conversation there, but.
No, you can feel free to go on about that.
Yeah, well, there's 3 or 4 tries from kicks.
Yeah,
and,
there was. Yep.
The crossfield kick to Rob Horn in the first half, and then the Patrick Osborne flying grubber kick. That was an amazing try.
Yeah, that was Naholo with that one.
Yeah, Naholo. Sorry, not
yep.
Osborne. That was an amazing try, and I called it. I said he was in. I didn't even have to go upstairs to the video referee. I knew he was in. And,
it looked a lot closer in real time than it did on the replay.
Yeah, it did, but I knew he was in. So, I was almost wanting to give a try straight away if I was the referee, but you obviously have that technology, and obviously the kick from the holo at the end there with the chip over and then the step back inside to score. So, I don't know if that. Do you think that'll be a tactic the Highlanders use in the game against the Highlanders again?
For the final, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, definitely, they'll use that, especially with Osborne and a holo. That's really their game plan. Getting those two men the ball that's route number one. Fekitoa, Osborne, Naholo, that's their game plan. Smith and Smith, they create the play, and those guys are the finishers, and they just execute perfectly. And there's no surprise why Naholo is in the All Blacks squad. No surprise at all, really.
Yeah.
So that's enough on the ref. We've spoken about the ref too much already. It's a debated topic. It always is, especially in a game like that where there's a contentious decision. But enough about the referee. Let's go on about the players a bit somehow. And the forwards. Now, this was a huge talked about topic. This was massive. Just the forward battle. When you looked at the forward pack for the Waratahs, how many international caps, how many current international players were in there, and then you look at the Highlanders with, how many players would, even you, for example, how many names are there did you even recognise from that Highlanders pack?
2 or 3.
Exactly, that's the point right there. But you look at the results, the line-out, it was absolutely atrocious for the Waratahs. The Highlanders dominated their line-out. The back row and the second row of the Waratahs, there was huge talk about that, how it was going to dominate, the likes of Dennis and Pokita and Palu, those guys, Hooper as well, all those 5 players were going to be brutal. They were going to bring the pain. What happened there? They didn't show up. This no-name Highlanders pack, again, it dominated the game. What happened to that forward pack of the Waratahs?
Well, the Highlanders just executed their game plan amazingly. They executed it 100%. That was the most annoying part of the match for me. The lineouts. The Waratahs lost 7 lineouts on their ball. That's unheard of. You're not going to win a game if you can't win your own ball off a lineout.
Yep.
Like, how bloody difficult can it be?
Very difficult, it seems.
But seriously. But I mean, my opinion is on the pack. They just completely shut down the Waratahs. The Waratahs forward pack. They rely on big running. The Waratahs just didn't have ball. They just didn't have territory. They just didn't have ball. They couldn't get the backs on the front foot, and that's why the Highlanders just counteracted that.
Do you reckon it's down to the coaching, the way that forward pack is coached, or do you reckon they're just underrated players?
Well, it could be. I'm not sure how the Highlanders coach really coaches, but
well, more in the fact of that. Do you think they're just underrated, or does it look like they've just got a good game plan, or does it look like they're just good players? You know what I mean?
The tactic. I'm going to say this: the tactics in the game plan that they executed was amazing. I've never probably seen. That's the first time I've actually recognized rugby tactics so well. I've actually got so much respect for the Highlanders coach. I mean, the way he just did it amazingly. I don't know if you have an opinion on the game plan, but this game plan for his forwards are just to, overall, the game plan was just to get in their territory and just keep making the Waratahs play defensive. And the Waratahs forwards just didn't have enough stamina to get good runs like they usually do. Palu, Skelton, Podgita, they just didn't get enough runs and ball.
And it shows that Jamie Joseph is a former back rower as well, and from memory, at least definitely in the back row or the second row, from years gone by in the 90s, that probably showed in the way that those players played as well with his experience in those positions. But just their ability, I think it is they know what they have to do. They have no pressure to do it. They don't have to shine in the fact that they're not Michael Hooper or Liam Messon. They have to dominate a game. They just have to do what they do, and they just seem to have no problem doing it. They don't mind just being that invisible forward pack that everyone underestimates, and they just do their job, which is exactly what they did. And again, it's worked perfectly for them, and you've just brought up my rest of my topics in like a little bit. But while we're on the forwards, another point I was going to make is around the 60th minute, probably around that yellow card, just before possibly, you've seen the Waratahs change to... A lot of people said they didn't have a plan B, but from my watching of the game, they did have a plan B, and that was the really, really aggressive approach that they pulled in, like we seen against the Crusaders. They did that full match, and that really rattled the Crusaders, but they did that against the Highlanders. They tried to be more punishing, more aggressive, and, like, hurt people, but it just didn't seem to work. Is it just the way that it counteracted from the Highlanders that didn't work for them? Is it they just composure, or just the ability to stick to the game plan that just didn't let the Waratahs try anything new?
Game plan yet again. I'm just going to keep banging on the door. The tactics that they used was amazing. And I mean, I don't know. I just want to explain the game plan. It was so simple as well. The Highlanders, they just wanted to play for territory. They recognized the weakness that Bernard Foley has under the high ball, kept kicking it to him. The Aaron Smith box kicks were amazing. They put, Foley under a lot of pressure, and then from that knock on, kept scrum and good field position within the Waratahs half, and just contest the ball on Waratahs lineup. That's the only game. That was their game plan, and it worked. It was so simple as well.
It was, yeah, and again, you've brought up my next couple of points as well. We'll go with Foley because we've brought it up a couple of times already. He was just horrible, wasn't he? Sopawanga wasn't great. I thought he was average, but goodness me, if you're a Wallabies fan and you watch Bernard Foley knowing he's probably going to be your number 10 come World Cup time, aren't you concerned? He had no way of getting out of his own half, let alone his own 22. He just made mistake after mistake. Are you concerned about the form that he's showing?
I'm concerned with Nick Phipps as well. Nick Phipps had an absolute shocker against the Reds a couple of weeks ago, and he wasn't any better. I mean, he just set the precedent. How the first play of the game, Nick Phipps throws it and misses Bernard Foley, and it goes almost dead. Yep.
That's true. Yeah, that did happen, didn't it? It set the scene for them, didn't it? And they didn't really recover.
Foley, after was Adam Ashley Cooper, great body height with a not releasing penalty, didn't bloody fine touch.
It's the basics.
Like, seriously, you're not going to win a game if you play like the Western Force. You're not going to win a game if you can't catch a fucking ball. And that's what I'm so pissed about. Because even though the Highlanders played so well, it didn't help the Waratahs' cause by the way they played. They played like 5-year-olds.
The Highlanders did play well, but I think the Waratahs played that badly. That resulted in the end result more than the Highlanders actually playing that well.
15 turnovers for the Waratahs, 7 lineup losses, and they had something like 35 missed tackles as well. Like, you're not going to win if you play like that.
Where was their composure? Like, that yellow card happened about the 57th minute, and they run around. They lost their composure. They ran around like headless chickens. What happened to this great leader that they had in Dave Dennis? They just seemed to get rattled, and the longer it went on, the worse they got, and the more different things they tried, again, the worse it got. Where was their leader? Where was the man, like Richie McCaw against Ireland? We all know what happened there 2 years ago, or whatever it was, against that Ireland test, and, 83rd minute, whatever it was, they scored that try. That man that stands here and goes, look, this game isn't over, we can still win it. We're still in it. We just have to not give up. The Waratahs didn't have that. Where was that man? Who should be that man?
Michael Hooper.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not a bit. I don't know what your opinion on this is, but
you're the Australian fan.
Yeah, I'm not big. I'm not a big fan of Dave Dennis. Even though he's a great leader, I just don't think he's got that X factor that the Waratahs pack is really looking for. Like, if you think about Sokopi Kepu, Ben Robinson, and Plotter now, front rowers, all got that somewhat of X factor. Will Skelton, one of the the biggest X factor forwards in the world, and then you got Podgita, Hooper, and Pailu. Dave Dennis is an outsider, in my opinion.
It's a massive pack. But they just lost their heads. They just had no composure. They had no leader. That's what I seen in it. They just had no one to calm it down, bring it back and say, let's go back to catching the ball and kicking it out of our half. just seemed like they were just completely had no clue. Like they needed a 3/4 time to go speak with the coach or something. It just seemed completely, uncharacteristic from them. But I guess that's what happens when you don't have, Michael Hooper, Australian captain. Does that give you confidence after that performance?
Yes, I just want to correct. Dave Dennis has played 18 caps for Australia, so I don't want to get my information wrong. But yeah, Michael Hooper became the youngest ever Wallabies captain last year. I don't know why he got sent back to the vice captainship again. Why, Michael Check is called.
Yeah, there's we'll get to the Wallabies another day, but
yeah,
it's just concerning. Like, for me, from New Zealand, I'm happy. That's great. Absolute disarray in Australia. That makes me happy. But as a rugby fan at the other side of the coin, it doesn't as well. So, to cap this one all up, where did it go wrong for the Waratahs? Was it the amazing defence and the game plan of the Highlanders? Was it the lack of a second plan? Was it the fact the Waratahs didn't have any real attacking momentum, any chance to get out of their own half, things like that? Where did you see the biggest thing that the Waratahs went wrong?
Probably game plan from Highlanders, and it didn't help with the way the Waratahs played. Yeah. I think that if Jamie Joseph can execute another game plan against the Hurricanes and take down a big giant again, it's going to be because of the preparation and the game plan going into it.
So you're starting to believe in the Highlanders?
I'm starting to believe in Jamie Joseph and his coaching stuff. It just depends on the preparation. If the Highlanders, they don't have the players, they don't have the X factor, but they've got the tactics, they've got the game plan, and this is basically where the Northern Hemisphere sides do so well. They have game plans to beat teams.
Yep, that's true. And can you believe that Jamie Joseph was pretty close to the chopping block 2 years ago as well? So what a turnaround for him and his team as well. So obviously you're surprised by this result. That's a given. You said the Waratahs were going to win by 7.
Yep.
How surprised are you? Are you just completely bamboozled by what happened?
No. Well, yes and no. Also, I think a factor was that they normally turn down shots at penalty goal, but they didn't normally kick for the corner. But every time they went down into the Highlanders half, they got points. But maybe instead of going for the penalty goals, which they don't often go for, why they didn't kick to the corner and try and put lots of pressure and get into the mind of the Highlanders. I think
leadership, captaincy, decision making. Yeah, that's probably, after speaking about this a bit more, is where I think the Waratahs went wrong, and just the Highlanders' game plan just completely just added to the pressure that they put on themselves by that other stuff happening with the lack of leadership in the team. So in the end, that one finished 35-17, a hammering from the Highlanders, who are going to the grand final this weekend against the Hurricanes. Of course, we will be back for that one. A little final thing, just as a little teaser for future things. Are you concerned about your Wallabies squad? Line-out issues, Brendan Foley at 10. Wouldn't you think Leali'ifano would be better there?
Well, no, because Brendan Foley can play well if he's on form and he's got his right headspace. I think having Stephen Moore is going to make a massive difference. I think Clontarf is going to be the backup hooker for the Wallabies. So they're going to have different line-out calls. They're going to have different structures. I'm not concerned about the Wallabies form until I actually see them play.
So World Cup semi-final versus South Africa. Brendan Foley, Nick Phibbs.
Mate, I have to wait.
Doesn't scare you?
Well, it does scare me, but I mean, who else would you put in there? Would you put in maybe Quade Cooper? I mean, he's got the X factor, but he can either win your games or he can lose your games.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just Bernard Foley's normally Mr. Consistency, so that's the same with Nick Phibbs. So we just got to wait and see. But if you want that X factor and if you want to take a risk, you might have to use Quade Cooper. But
it's going to be interesting when they release their squad, which I will be calling on your expertise to cover that one and see just exactly break that one down and have a look. Surely, now that both teams are out, they'll be pretty close to announcing that squad, I would imagine.
It's coming out this week. Just talking about
even better. Then we can cover the grand final and the Wallabies squad at the same time. That was a match made in heaven. That wraps us up for today, guys. My smile will be etched on my face for the remainder of Super Rugby until the international season gets underway, or New Zealand Grand Final. I am a happy man. As for the Scottish Canon, commiserations, my friend, and thank you again for joining me for this one.
No problem. I just love rugby as a whole, so, you know, even though it's disappointing, I just love watching good games of rugby, so I can't wait for the final myself, and, you know, I'm sure we'll be covering it in the discussion. We'll give our opinions, but yeah, let's go.
Sure will. And remember, guys, this is just our opinions. Be sure to leave your opinions in the comments below if you think otherwise. If you don't agree with us, let us know what you think. And, of course, be sure to stay tuned for that preview of the Grand Final, which will be coming up in a few days' time. But for now, I'm done and dusted. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Don't forget to check out the Cannon's channel page as well. Go check out all his videos coming up your way. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in and take care.
Goodbye.